do something a little different for this next month. In our investigation of, keep thinking, what should I call this? The investigation of death, the investigation of birth death. Today I came up with the investigation of groundless ground. The investigation of whatever you think is gonna happen next. Could really surprise you.
How about your motto, we're all gonna die?
What?
Your motto, we're all gonna
We're
die?
all gonna die. It's the birthplace of compassion. So I did a pretty long introduction on Tuesday, so if you weren't here on Tuesday and you're interested, you could go back and listen to that. I'm gonna do something small today and then pass it to Subhana, and then next week Chelsea and Jenny and Barbara and Patricia. And then the week after that, Erica and Patty. We have so many people, well, everybody in this song has experienced, yeah. Whether it's how close in is of course just individual karma and experience, but yeah, we're all gonna die. And so Sangha members are going to help me and help us feel and come close to what's true in our own hearts about living in this groundless world, upright, falling upright from the top of the waterfall. What I wanted to do is just begin, because there's so many beautiful Buddhist stories. And stories from the Buddha. I'm just going to take a minute and read. It's included in the newsletter this week. Kitsagotami's mustard seed. Hidden lamp, but it's just one version of it. 6th century BC India. Kitsagotami came from a poor family. The son of a wealthy family loved her and married her. Her in-laws treated her unkindly because of her background, but when she gave birth to a son, they finally respected her. Then when the child was a toddler, he died. And Kitsagotami went mad with grief. She carried the dead child from house to house, begging for medicine to make him well, and everyone sent her away saying, "The child is dead. No medicine can help him." One could well imagine this happening in Gaza and in many places right now. People going mad with grief. At last, a kind man directed her to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, "I will give you medicine to revive your child if you bring me a mustard seed from a house where no one has died." With renewed hope, Kitsagotami went forth to find the mustard seed, but at every house she learned that someone had died. And so, still carrying her child's body in her arms, she returned to the Buddha. "Did you bring me a mustard seed?" he asked her. "I thought that death only happened to my little son, but now I understand that it happens to everyone. Impermanence is the universal law." She buried her child in the forest and returned to the Buddha to receive ordination. I just want to do Christina Feldman, who I think is a Vipassana teacher, has a reflection. There's a reflection in each chapter. I just wanted to say a couple of words that she said that I thought were wise and beautiful. It's the story of every human being who knows in their heart that to love, cherish, and care for another is to risk heartache and loss. Each of us holds within us a personal story and a universal story. A personal story born of all that we have experienced and felt in this life is unique to us. Our families, our joys and sorrows, our values, aspirations and hopes, our disappointments, the countless events of our life have shaped who we are and how we see in ways that no other single human being can know. But when we understand that our personal story holds within it the universal story of all human beings, then we have the radical possibility of dissolving the boundaries of I and you and us and them. Impermanence is the law that governs all experience. We live with our feet on shifting sands, groundless ground, that can crumble beneath us in any moment. Loss, death, and separation reveal to us so poignantly that as long as we are misaligned with this core truth, we will live in a state of argument with our lives. To embrace this truth of impermanence wholeheartedly, deeply, and unshakably will not save us from grief, but will perhaps teach us to embrace the moments of deepest pain in our lives without dispute. And I would add, I think it will help us live in this life with more freedom and with more joy. To release ourselves to this great waterfall of birth and death and wonder and don't know, and to being a human being along with all the human beings on this planet. No one can save us, and we're all saved. We just practice together. Letting go at the end of each exhale, disappearing, dying, resurrecting the next moment. Spring, green life. Free falling at the end of each step in Keenheen, and the earth rises to catch us and greet us. What a wonder it is. The more we can open to the wonder, let go into it, the more alive we are. So with that, I'm going to pass this to Subhana. Back to here.
I'm gonna see.
She's going to adjust it so they can see you.
Oh, okay. I think that's decent. Nicely.
Good morning. Well, first of all, it's wonderful to be here. I finally have hearing aids so that I can hear people, and so that makes being here a whole lot more possible. I'd like to begin by just giving you a brief introduction. My path in life has been a lot about death, and it started when I was 5 years old, and my father and I had gone fishing, and the fish we took went belly up in the bucket. And my dad said, we have to give it a funeral. And so we went home and we gave the little fish a funeral by burying it, wrapping it in beautiful cloth. And we, at the time I was related more with a Christian church. And so we said the, Lord's Prayer, and he taught me about grief, and he taught me about ritual and ceremony. And then throughout my life, I mean, I lost my parents when I was in my 20s. I lost a baby in my 30s. When I was teaching, there were a number of children that died. And so I was working in the school system with all that. And finally, it was like, okay, what are you going to do about this? And I was ordained as a minister, and then I went into chaplaincy training, and I have a very strong interfaith background, and that's where I come from. Not just a Buddhist background, because working with people who are dying in hospice, it really required to be very broad-minded. In the last year, I have become very interested in what are called the 9 contemplations of Atisha. And I'm just going to read them, but I highly recommend it. Maybe you could put this in the chat, Christine. Joan Halifax has a very detailed meditation on how to deal with these different contemplations. And I'm going to read them to you, and then, but I'm not going to go into the all of the details, because she does a really nice job on that, and I suggest you take a look at that online. First of all, as Chris was saying, all of us will die sooner or later. Second one is your lifespan is decreasing continuously. And when I listened to this, I remember being hit by the fact, she said, with every breath, you have moved closer to death. And I thought, oh my goodness, here we are all meditating on our breath. And then that awareness of, wow, this could be the last breath. So that was a really wonderful eye opener. And then death will come whether you're prepared or not. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. Your lifespan, like that of all living beings, is not fixed. Death has many causes, as we know. We've all experienced those at some point. Your body is fragile and vulnerable, and I think as we age, that becomes a whole lot more apparent. I've been sick for the last few weeks, and totally aware of how much more fragile I feel and vulnerable that I feel as I get older. The next one is your loved ones cannot keep you from dying. At the moment of your death, your material resources are of no use to you. Which is, I think, a big get rid of stuff. Start cleaning out. Sue Moon talks about that in her book, Alive Until You're Dead. You know, how she got a group of people together and they all brought their stuff together, and they gave it away. And the last one is your own body cannot help you at the time of your death. So these have been some real frameworks to take a look at in meditations, and each one has some possibilities. And having been with many people in the process of their dying or in hospice care, I've learned that many people are not ready. And I love Frank Dostoevsky's quote in his book, The 5 Invitations. To imagine at the time of our dying, we will have the physical strength, the emotional stability, and mental clarity to do the work of a lifetime is a ridiculous gamble. So what I've done is in the last couple of days, I did a workshop for some folks, and we talked about the fears around dying. And Hoshi Rhonda McGee, you know her? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw a podcast with her, and she said, contemplate fear. And when we get into fears, what are our fears? And to be very specific about it. And then take some kind of action. And so some of the actions that we came up with were breaking fear into its little teeny parts so that it's manageable. Definitely meditating, the breathing in and breathing out. Connect with nature. Nature's a great teacher for how things transition, and I do some calming techniques, use positive energy, positive imagery. And also with fear, many times we look at just how horrible it could be, and it never happens. And that's a big one. And make sure you have the information, because many times I think a lot of people that I've worked with didn't have the information, had no idea what it was going to be like to die. And I was really amazed that some of the nurses I worked with did not explain that, your body's changes that are going to happen. Your breathing is going to change, your temperature is going to change, your awareness is going to change. So having that information helps prepare us for when the time comes. I'm working on a book right now called Shared Grace, which is a lot of my experiences as a hospice chaplain. And I think some of the things that can ease our concerns is if we take this action. And so I'm just going to read to you a few of the questions that people have come up with. And I encourage you to make what's called a death box, to have all your materials in one place. Because so many times, the advanced directives are here, the will is here, the information about whether you want to be cremated or buried or whatever, they're all over the place. And for the benefit of your family and friends, whoever's going to be with you, if it's all in one place and people know about it, it's really helpful. I was really surprised to hear recently that 75% of human beings do not have advanced directives, which is huge. And a lot of people don't have wills. And people don't have financial directives, like who's going to take care of things? Who's going to take care of belongings? I mean, if you die, you leave your house, and where's all this stuff going to go? Choosing to be cremated or have a traditional burial, or more popular now is the green burial. What is your choice? Where do you want to be buried? Where do you want your ashes spread? What fears do you have about the end of your life, and what kind of compassion can you bring to that? I think that that's a really beautiful meditation, is bringing care to our own hearts and our own fears. I saw a beautiful podcast too the other day where this woman was teaching about comforting ourselves. And you can do this with me. You rub your hands really, really hard together. And then if you just slightly move them apart, there's this beautiful energy that's between them. And you reach out to the unknown, it could be the light, whatever. Put your other hand on your heart. Bring this hand down to the shoulder so that that energy can flow into your arm, and then slide it down to bring comfort. It was so powerful that, this group that I was working with, we all, there were so many fears that were being expressed. The fear of dementia, fear of being alone, and it went on and on and on. And that simple act just brought a calmness to the room. It was like mind-boggling. So that's something that we can do to help ourselves. Other questions are, what kind of service do you want, if any? Do you want a celebration of life? Do you want a traditional service? And also, what kind of music do you want? I remember I had one woman in hospice, and she wanted very much to I forgot what was his name. Alex Jones? Is that? No, Jackson. What's his first name?
Jackson Brown?
Yeah, well, anyhow, there was this music that was really pizzazzy. And she loved this guy. She had a big poster of him over the bed. It's like hanging the Tonka. And she wanted that music, and the family played the music, and everybody just, I mean, her spirit was so alive in that. And it was a wonderful way to honor her. So what kind of music and readings might you might want? Where do you want to be at the end of your life? You want to be home? Oh, hospital? Unfortunately, we don't have a hospice house around here, which is really sad to me. With so many people that have, worked hard to get that, but it just hasn't happened. Who do you want around you when you're dying? If anyone. Some people really choose to die alone because they use it as practice or whatever. Is there anyone that you don't want? For whatever reasons, you have unfinished business with them. And what kind of unfinished business needs to be taken care of? Sometimes we have, issues with parents, friends or whatever, and has that been healed? Because when people don't have unfinished business taken care of, they can be incredibly restless. And so healing can come even in the last moments before a person dies. Sometimes people want to see somebody in particular, and then they can let go. I think that as we look at death, then it really teaches us about the meaning of life and how can we make our lives meaningful? Are we doing those things that we really have a passion for? Whether it's gardening or going to the theater or musical concerts or anything that brings joy and peace and fulfillment to us while we are alive. And I think also the importance of gratitude for our lives. So many times in our society, people don't say thank you or please. And so offering gratitude to those people we love and who are good to us, as well as offering gratitude to ourselves for what we have offered to the world. And that just reminds me of last week I received a card from a very dear friend in New Hampshire, and it was beautiful, and it had like a metta prayer on the front, and then Barbara's picture on the back, and she wrote me this little note. Dear Subhana, this is my farewell letter to you. Thank you for being in my life. I will love you always. And I tell you, 2 days later, she decided to have medical assistance for dying because she had cancer for 14 years, and had gone to her bones, and it could have impacted her life if she felt really badly. So she decided to go ahead with her death. So I think that the Buddhists, the Tibetan Buddhists, and I don't know if you're all familiar with this, but it's a really wonderful book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And Sogyo Rinpoche teaches a wonderful practice called the Essential Power Practice. And it is focused in Buddhism, but it has many implications for any faith tradition. And that's why I like it so much. It's a transference of consciousness into a greater experience. And it's usually light related. For Buddhists, it's transference of consciousness into the luminosity of the Buddha. And he was beautiful, and he said, and it could be that transfer of consciousness into Jesus, or Kuan Yin, or whatever anybody believes. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories. I had a woman who was in her 90s, and Millie, she was a feisty one. She was just so delightful. And she said, Subhana, That's what she called me. She said, Subhana, when am I gonna die? And I said, I don't know, Millie, you know, it's bigger than anything I know about. And she said, well, how can I die? And using this essential power practice, I said, okay, let's talk about this and figure it out. So she said, I just want to go to Jesus. I said, great. How do you want to do that? And she said, well, I'd like to, I said, would you like to have Jesus walking towards you and you grabbing his arm or, you know, him holding, you know, how do you want it? She said, Savannah, I want him to carry me home. And Millie died with that in her consciousness. And I was with her shortly before she died, the day before she died, and she wasn't responsive, so I whispered her in her ear, Millie, Jesus is coming, he's gonna carry you home. And then sang to her when the saints go marching in, because that was her most favorite. Another gentleman that I had a very close connection with for a year was a Brit, and he was from the Isle of Wight. And I had been on the same coast as he is when I went to Sodio Industries center in Ireland. And so we both knew what it was like looking out over the sea. And we would sit and we would imagine that's the way he would lead, that he would see the light and the light would come towards him and he would walk towards the light. Again, Brian had a really peaceful death because that's something to practice. Another gentleman who was a hospice volunteer definitely used the light as his symbol for moving on. And we developed a guided meditation with music. And I would talk to him, I talked him through it. And a couple of days before we died, his wife called and said, he would really like you to come. Would you please come and take him through the visualization? And absolutely, because Rob was just a stellar person. So we did the visualization and I said, Rob, I'm going to slip out after, you know, while you're relaxing and you're, you know, experiencing this visualization. And I said, just, I wish you well on your journey. So we did the visualization, we had the music playing, and afterwards after sitting with him, I was ready to step out. And I turned around, very often we bow to my patients. And he had his hands in prayer position. And we bowed to each other, and that was the last time we saw each other. It's very beautiful. Then I had a couple of these guys that didn't have a spiritual practice. And I said, you know, how do you want to leave this world? And they said, I'd like to get on my motorcycle. And another guy said, I want to get in my Model T Ford that's sitting in the garage out there. And I said, okay, so how about you think about driving into the sunset? And then you just get received and you'll just go out that way. He said, man, you can come back and visit me anytime. You would tell me that kind of stuff. They did not want spiritual care, they thought their wives needed spiritual care. Anyhow, those are a few experiences. I would, let me just get my notes here. Let me see how we're doing one time. Okay. I think that in our tradition, the Prajna Paramita has been at least really important for me. I was almost dying about 5 years ago at this time and was in the hospital. And all that kept coming to me was the Prajna Paramita. And I started chanting it just in my head. And it's a really beautiful mantra to be just reminded that we are going to go beyond. I'm going to go to the other shore. And I tell you that every time I've been sick, the Prajna Paramita comes up and it brings great comfort. For other people, it may be the Om Mani Padme Om. It can vary. let go and let God, whatever.
When you say Prajna Paramita, you mean the Heart Sutra?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, but the chant.
Yeah.
And that brought me such calm and. My feeling was if I go to the other shiur, that's just fine. Because it was so comforting. So I'd like to take a couple minutes and just, have you experience a little bit of the power practice and, just, sitting comfortably. And think about whether it's the Buddha, some people have other, deities, whether it's the, Kuan Yin or, any of the female deities that you might be connected with. And imagine just, doing the breathing, just doing your breathing in and out. And then the power practice is to transfer consciousness to the Buddha in this situation, the Buddha light. And just imagine that Buddha light coming to you. And then allow the light within you to merge with the greater luminosity. And then just be in that light. And go beyond. Go beyond. Go to the other shore. And slowly bring your awareness back to this time and space. From your feet on the ground. Connection with the other people in your room. And when you're ready, open your eyes and be present here. I'd like to end with just a story. My first experience of sitting with someone, Peggy's father, was my friend Peggy's father. And when Joe, he was just in and out of consciousness. And I was sitting vigil with him. And all of a sudden he sat up straight as an arrow in the bed. And went like this. lay back and go. I think death is a space of awe. And having almost also on the side myself, it's something to fear. But we do need to take care of our business and get to that place. So Chris, I don't know what we have for time. Take 5 minutes.
Yeah, a question comes to me, does one come to you? Because we can go with that, or